We needed to kind of find out if there were any lawsuits or like anything that is going to pop up in the due diligence that we didn't want to have popped up. So in the subject line, I wrote, "Any dead bodies in your house?"
This is the Pass the Pitch podcast with Anna Frazzetto. Each episode, we sit down with bold thinkers and industry trailblazers to uncover the strategies, stories, and sparks of inspiration that drive growth and transformation. Let's get started.
Hello and welcome to Pass the Pitch podcast. I am thrilled today to have Tom Kosnik, president of Vicis Group. And Tom, I always do a little bit of research if you followed my podcast in the past, where I take a look at your LinkedIn profile. And most people are usually shocked, but I do read the About section in each of the profiles. And I love that it talks about you being recognized as a business consultant specializing in organizational development, profitability improvement, and work culture transformation. Three key ingredients, I think, especially today, in regards to being able to drive companies forward. So for over 2 decades, you have facilitated the President's Roundtable, working with companies of all sizes and function and providing your guidance. So Tom, welcome.
Oh, thank you so much, Ann. Good to be here.
Okay, excellent. So why don't we just dive right in? I always like to start with a question in regards to, leadership and the impact of business, right? So what's the best business decision you almost did make, and what pushed you over the edge? And this is always interesting to hear. There's a lot of times that we're kind of held back where we're like, it's not 100%, baked yet. So I'm not going to do something, or I'm just going to take the leap and go forward.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Well, certainly the best business decision. I was in a small group of 4 or 5 other people prior to branching out on my own, and it was never my intent. It was never in my job plan to own my own business or have my own employees. I just never thought about that. But there came a point where I realized that I needed to go out on my own, do my own thing. You hear these stories about band members that went out and they left the band and started their own thing, and then a whole nother life opens up for them. And that certainly was the case for me. In terms of decisions, is sort of in reverse, because I see a lot of this as well in business, and that is when egos get involved in certain business decisions. But we were involved in had part ownership involved in a little IT staffing startup. And we actually had contractors billing, and we had a handful of employees. And then the Great Recession hit, and I think like a third of the IT staffing businesses went out of business during the Great Recession. And of course, we could have put more money into it and try to make it last longer, but we decided. Which we really, again, a lot of work, a lot of effort to kind of get that up off the ground. But so we challenging this decision, but we decided to, we need to call this quits and not let our egos get attached into this decision that we made, several months prior.
Right. And I'll tell you, just to kind of, harp on a couple of things that you just mentioned, one is, taking the plunge, starting your own business, right. And opening up new opportunities for you, but having, kind of the trust and the faith that it was the right decision. But also the key item that you mentioned is like knowing when to pivot or cut the cord when something is not working out. And I agree with you. I do think think a lot of times egos get in the way, and that causes for organizations or individuals to make bad decisions or to hang on to something just a little too long. Actually, today I just had lunch with a colleague, and we were talking about, like, employees and sometimes making the tough call on when to let somebody go. And sometimes you almost feel, and I think CEOs of mid-sized companies or even larger companies, that they wind up, well, the person could turn around or they could work out, and you wind up belaboring a point. But I think it's like cut the cord on all accounts when the decision is right, and not let anything else kind of get in the way.
Yeah, I would. I learned this in one of my roundtables where somebody said, when you should let an employee go, the very first time that it enters your head, the very first time the question comes into your mind, should I retain this person or should I release this person? That's when you should release them, because that's your intuition speaking. And frankly, I mean, think about customers, clients. How many clients do staffing companies hang on to that they're losing money on this client? Oh, Tom, but it's paying for the lights, and but you're losing X amount of dollars on this client. Uh,
Exactly. Oh my goodness, that's another, I think, such a key point. It's okay to fire a client, right? I mean, it's okay to
oh,
fire a client,
absolutely.
because any
Absolutely.
client that wants to enter a relationship with you as a service provider where it's a win-lose scenario, where um, you're losing, right?
Yeah.
It should
Yep.
be a win-win. And you need to have the hard conversations. And I've also seen some clients not realize that it was a win lose, and actually come to the table with some suggestions on how to make it right.
Yeah. That's it's great to have that. Of course, you've been around long enough where you know that if I have a client that is in my ideal client profile, the profitability and the sustainability of that client over time is so much greater than these clients that are bumping along on the bottom of the river.
Oh, I know exactly. So I was going to make a comment when you said you've been around a long time, but the reality is I have been around a long time. So yeah, I've seen that happen over and over again. But anyway, okay, let's talk about my favorite subject, which is salespeople. What's one underrated skill or trait that more people in sales, or even leadership for that matter, should master?
Yeah, so I look at traits different than skills. So I look at skills as these are things that one can learn, that one can master. And so one underrated skill, I believe, that all of us could be continuously learning, is the art of listening. And I actually, there's a national association of for listening. I discovered this. Yeah, I discovered this through. I'm involved in a handful of networking groups myself. But anyway, there was a speaker that came in, and anyway, he had a number of resources, and I connected with him afterwards. But the art of listening, active listening, listening. We're right. I mean, we're so ADD with these lousy things that and Amazon, like, what do you mean I have to wait? I can't get it this afternoon. Uh, that it happens in our conversations where we're kind of thinking about what's the next thing I'm going to say. While somebody's talking to me, I'm kind of thinking in my head, instead of just just listening. So I think that's one. And gosh, uh, it, what salesperson can't improve their productivity by learning how to listen better?
Oh, I mean, I agree with you 110%. I was actually going to make a joke about National Listening Association. So does anybody talk at the National Listening Association, right? But but no, I agree. And you know what? I think it's the eagerness, especially for salespeople, but also in leadership, wanting to anticipate what the question is, and therefore here's my, crafted answer. This is how we can help. These are the services we have. This is what we can do. But then they're missing the golden nuggets of really the client is explaining their pain point, but you're too caught up in figuring out what the next thing is you're going to say.
What's the best form of respect? Just listening to somebody, like really listening to somebody, and they know, right? When you can even be on a Zoom call, and when somebody's like doing an email, or you don't even need to be on a Zoom call. You just be on a regular phone, and somebody will say, "Are you doing something else?" you can your intuition can tell if they're listening or not. But it is a so with recruiting and with sales, the whole of really truly being present and listening to another individual, it really is a form of it is really a form of respect, and they know it, they feel it, and that's where one gains the authenticity in the relationship. We talk about all this stuff about, we want salespeople to be relationship builders and build rapport really quickly, and look in the guy's office. Oh, he's got cats. So let me tell you a cat story. Whatever. I mean, some of that stuff works, but
Yeah, exactly. No, I agree. And actually, it's interesting when you were talking about like being on a call with someone or a video call and the person being distracted, or even in person, and they have their cell phone and they're responding to something. I'll pause the conversation and say, if you need to get that, please go right ahead.
yeah,
But I do that on purpose so that it shows like our time is valuable.
yes,
So if you need to take care of something else, go ahead, take care of something else. But then when you and I are engaged in conversation, it's you and I engaged in conversation. I do this with prospects. I do it with clients. I do it with internal staff. I do it across the board. I do it with family. Okay. Like, what it's like when you have teenagers sitting around a dining room table, and we have a rule in the house where all phones have to be
sounds
parked
good.
at the
Yeah,
front. Yeah.
yeah.
There's no phones at the
Good
table.
for you. Good for you.
Yeah. And so, but it's that thing of saying, no, this is important. So let's not waste any time by trying to
Yeah.
multitask, because you're not going to multitask effectively.
Well, men cannot multitask. Period. I'm a living example. Let me tell you. I tell people, right. I say, look, I cannot multitask. It's just like everything becomes a mess. Hey, so in terms of traits, I believe that an underrated trait. Have you ever read Frank Benningerd's "How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success"? Yeah, probably years ago, right? Isn't it? It's such a great, like when we're working with like a sales manager, I always say, hey, get your new sales reps this book and just kind of walk through them with this, because it's, first off, it's so easy to read. It's written by him, and the whole thing. But I think the personality trait that is underrated is the ability to organize one's day, and that's not getting sucked into holes, not getting sucked into email, not getting sucked into but like learning how to time block, how to organize your day, how to plan your day, plan your week, build your plan, plan your work your plan. The other thing I want to say is that it's the executive functioning part of the brain. So the ability to like organize your desk, organize your day, organize your week, it's really the trait of executive functioning. And oh my gosh, the productivity that you get from that is just enormous,
Oh, it
enormous.
is. Yeah. I mean, one of the exercises that I do when I first start working with a new sales team is actually take a look at how they've organized their work week, right? Because it's insightful if I take a look at their calendar and it's just, a couple of meetings that are there, but then there's nothing else. Then we start talking about, okay, well, when are you doing new BD work?
Hmm.
When you know, like, how are you organizing your work week? So that's a very, very valid point. Okay, so let's talk about how do you keep your team motivated when results aren't coming as fast as expected. And let's face it, especially in the tech space, I mean, the last couple of years have been painful, but staffing in general has been really painful over the last couple of years. And so, how do you keep the team motivated?
Yeah, the concept of motivation of motivating employees. There are some thoughts that motivation is tied to values, the values in use. In other words, that if whatever I value, whatever the work preferences I value, the social things that I value, the camaraderie or the collaboration, the work environment that I value. That if I'm tied into an organization that has matching values, that in and of itself is going to be a motivator. That's going to motivate me to want to stay involved, stay engaged, and succeed. So commonly overlooked is the exercise of values in theory versus values in use. And all of us, you've met many employees, and hey, what are the values of your organization? Good question. Because but they do have values, and they're living those values out. So that's one thing to do, is just to make sure that you're actually living out and you're talking about the values. And like we do these, every couple of weeks, our entire team gets together, and we, once a month, we'll talk about, okay, we have our values up there. Okay, who's got examples of how they lived out one of the values? How and many times it's not Tom Kosnik talking about how Tom Kosnik, but Tom will say, well, Ella did X, and that was living out our commitment to, continuous learning and things like that. So that's one thing to keep people motivated during these times. And then you got to celebrate the small successes, right? You can't, you really have to celebrate the small successes, and you have to continue to give praise at least once a week. It's we often gone by the wayside, giving praise to employees, and that's not. And there's been a lot of jokes about millennials and how they make a phone call. Oh, you got fantastic, great, you made a phone call. But people do. If you read the research, employees do need some kind of input feedback, positive input feedback from their managers. They need some sense of praise from. There was an organization I went with. I loved this. I experienced it where they did this once a week, where they got the whole team together. There was like 30 people. I was just there on a consulting gig, and so they said, "Hey, Tom, join our morning meeting." And employees were kind of saying, "Hey, so and so did this for me, and I just want to shout it out and thank you so much, and that was great." And gosh, that's a motivator. Those kinds of little things that you can do are big motivators for employees.
I couldn't agree more. It's a way, sometimes I think management, especially like first line or second line management, they get caught up in providing, the negative feedback, like the things that are not working well. But equal to that is got to be, you got to be able to do the positive stuff and celebrate the small victories. I'm a big fan of that, especially when we're going through, tough economic times, or, the market's uncertain, and therefore you used to celebrate, when you sat with a client that you were trying to get in front of for a long time, but now you can celebrate, you linked and connected with them, and you have been trying for a long time to get a LinkedIn connection. So yes, that's
Right?
something that we can celebrate today. But I agree with you on all counts,
Did
sharing the positive information.
Have you ever read, geez, what got you here won't get you there? Yeah.
Big fan.
Oh my gosh. I mean, another, like, this is another so well written, so easy to read. If you've got managers, I mean, buy them that book, read through it. I read through that book. A client of mine that was getting an MBA from the University of Michigan gave me that book. Is it Michael Goldberg? Uh, uh, I can't remember, but I think Goldberg is the last name, but I can't remember the first name. Anyway, so he gave me that book. I think it was signed by the author because he came and spoke at the University of Michigan. And I'm reading it, and I'm thinking, like, one of the chapters is just say thank you. I said, you gotta be kidding me. Like, who doesn't say, but how many times do managers, an employee does whatever employee does? Oh, thank you so much for doing that. Oh, thank you. I'm constantly with my employees. Oh, guys, thanks for working so hard. Oh, thank you for doing that. It
Right.
goes a long way,
Oh, it
right?
does.
It's it's
It's
it's
that
it's it's
acknowledgement. It's that
it's a
acknowledgement that you appreciate the time and effort that was put into something. And even if a deal is lost, I acknowledge the work and the effort,
right.
and we gave it
Yeah,
our all, and it just wasn't our time to
cult-
win this
culture
deal.
culture of gratitude, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's interesting. I don't know if you went to Tech Serve Alliance last year, the conference in November, and they had a keynote speaker called Ryan Leake, and he talked about that sometimes in leadership, what winds up happening is you get into a mode like if you're walking into an office, right? So let's say it's the day that everybody's in the office, walking into an office, and you're like, hi, how are you? How are you? But you're really not waiting to hear people
Mm,
respond to how are you. And
sure.
so he got into the habit of stopping in front of each person and saying, hi, Tim, how are you today? And the person would be shocked on the receiving end, is like, oh, I'm good, but he did that on purpose because he wanted to illustrate, I am paying attention to you right now.
Yeah, right. Back to listening. Back to active listening.
Exactly, exactly. So I want to know how you're doing if something is not going well. So all valuable points and messages here, and I know the audience
Well,
is
the
going
other
to.
the other thing you're really talking about is just the authenticity. Just that people crave authentic relationships, and it's not just in a significant other or friends, but it's at work as well. We all want that. It's which is part of a meaningful work environment. It's not crazy. I mean, we're not talking about rocket science stuff here. It's
I know, but you know what? It sounds so basic, but take a look at how many companies and how many
don't do it.
organizations and how many people suffer from not
Don't do it.
practicing
Right?
some of these,
Exactly.
basic things. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay, so now what's one mindset shift that unlocked new growth for you or your team?
We had okay, so I've been doing this for just over 30 years. And the old days. In fact, do you remember Gold Mine for Windows?
No, I
That was,
don't, thank God.
yeah, they were Goldmine for Windows was a competitor to Act. Do you remember Act? I can't remember if Act was a Microsoft product or what. But anyway, the CRMs, those were kind of the first CRMs that ever came out on the market. And so that we were using Goldmine for Windows. It was you could record calls and set pending calls and segment the database out and all that stuff. But anyway, I learned the old days. You just picked up the phone and you made dials. I mean, that was my quote unquote preferred means of communication. But we hired a young lady from the University of Illinois, or that graduated from the University of Illinois, and she was a wonderful employee. And we got into this heated conversation. Heated probably is not the right word. We got into this highly engaged conversation about emails and phone calls and all that stuff. And she said something to me, and she said, Tom, your preferred means of communication is to make phone calls and get on a. She said, our means of communication is through email and texting. That's just our preferred, and I thought about that. I thought about that for a while. And because I was in that camp that, hey, like, we got to be making dials. We got to be making calls. We got to be making them. But just, gosh, understanding the preferred means of communication from the other side of the table. And then how do I adjust my behavior in that scenario? And It's sort of like I've heard many times, like, gosh, how long did it take that person to craft that email? Why didn't they just pick up the phone and call me? it would have been, so much easier. But that was a mind shift in terms of the way that we started to utilize the different modes of communication in our sales methodology. And then of course it just builds from there. As in today's day and age with social media and marketing and whatnot. But that was hey, this is the way you do it.
Oh, exactly. And you know what? You also remind me of, kind of like sitting with salespeople. And I remember, the group of young salespeople who were young to the sales, process, but they were trying to just send text messages as a way of trying to get, a meeting. And I had to pull them together and saying, okay, your audience, who you're selling to, are people in their mid 50s, right? Texting might not be what they respond to. So understand who's in. So very similar to what you're saying, but it's like on the receiving end, make sure that they want to get text messages. They might prefer
Right?
an old fashioned email. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Correct. Yeah. So that was anyway, you know how it is. We can get hard headed in our old habits.
That's true. That's true. Okay, so tell me about a time when a seemingly small cultural detail made an impact on a deal or a hire or a business decision.
Yeah, so when I think, you have to forgive me because I've got an organizational development background and a master's in organizational development and whatnot. So, but when I think about culture, there are every company has a culture, every organization has a culture, and there are some things that there are some maps that could fit on every organization, and so when you think about, like you mentioned, win-win. So there are, and there's a continuum, right? So there's a continuum of win-win to win-lose. There's a continuum of prudent decision making versus venturesome decision making. There's centralized versus decentralized. There's collaborative versus individualistic. So, for example, in our world, you have you get some IT or engineering staffing firms where the culture is very prudent decision making. They're paralysis by analysis, because the person at the top is an engineer and very kind of thinking through all these things. There are some direct hire firms that where it's more individualistic, versus contract staffing where it's more team based. So I think for me, the whole culture thing is finding clients that, first of all, understanding our culture, my culture, the Vicis Group culture, and then finding clients that match that culture. That whether we're win-win, whether we're decentralized, whether we're collaborative, and all that. And so we had a and I don't know if this is a small detail or not, but I won a substantial deal. I was up against two other consulting firms that were much larger than my firm, and it was a pretty substantial succession planning project. And we got on these calls. There were a couple of calls, and of course, it was the whole. This was a three-headed monster. So there were like the company was owned by three people, and then there was another three people that were on the executive team. So it was like six people and myself, and they're interviewing me, and we had a handful of things. But at some point, the question of values came up, and the questions of hey, so tell us about your values, and tell how does that run in your work, and dot dot dot. And anyway, I won the project, which I was happy, and I had a couple consultants that we have on staff here that joined me on that. But just the fact that I kind of knew, where the Vicis Group was on those continuums, those cultural continuums, and could tell stories about, really went a long way in terms of the buyer saying, I like this group. I like this group. This group is aligned with who we are, and which later on, when we did all our research and we did our work with them, they were a quote unquote a customer intimate strategy type, which is what we are as well. So it was a very good match. Uh, and then in terms of a hire, we have three resources that are over in the Philippines, and they're all fantastic folks. Uh, uh, there's so many people that interact with our team from the Philippines that say, you're like, where did you find your people, Tom? It's like, uh, I say, look, guys, this is not, again, this is not rocket science. We have a very tight job profile. We talk to them every day. We have, we meet as a team once every 2 weeks. We have quarterly targets. We have goals. We have action plans. We're helping each other out. It's not, but we hired one person that again, she's just over the top. I mean, people have said that, like, our interactions. Listen to this. People have said to us, our interactions with your employee in the Philippines is my case study to go to the ownership to have offshore people on staff. Isn't that a great compliment?
That is fantastic. And I mean, honestly, you kind of hit it when you said the culture, the cultural match. That's so important. And honestly, it covers the full 360, right? It's your employees, it's your clients, it's the suppliers, the vendors you utilize. You want to have that full 360 match as far as when it comes
Absolutely.
to culture.
Absolutely. That's why it's so important not only to know your culture on those four continuums I talked about, which can be overlaid on any organization. But in the sales methodology, in the sales process, that you're asking discovery calls where you can clearly articulate or clearly understand that, hey, this client matches our culture, and or several aspects of our culture, because those are going to be your long term clients.
Oh, exactly. Well,
Yeah.
Tom, listen, I think you and I could easily talk for at least another 2 hours, but unfortunately, I have to wrap up the podcast. But before we end, a little bit of a surprise here. I am going to ask you a couple of rapid fire questions, and please share with us what comes to your mind. So, the first one: what's the weirdest email subject line you've ever received or sent?
Well, this is one that I've sent, and we were involved in an M&A deal, and we were I wasn't getting any responses, and we needed to get something. We needed to kind of find out if there were any lawsuits or like anything that is going to pop up in the due diligence that we didn't want to have popped up. So in the subject line, I wrote, "Any dead bodies in your house?"
Oh my God. And if somebody else happens to be passing by and reading that subject line, that's awesome. Okay, that's a good one. Definitely. I have not heard that yet. So that's a great one. Okay. Okay. If your sales pitch had a theme song, what would it be?
It'd be "You're the Lucky One," by Alison Krauss, by the way. I don't know if you're an Alison Krauss fan or not, but
Okay.
uh,
Okay, that's a good one.
yeah.
If you had to give yourself a completely ridiculous job title based on what you actually do all day, what would it be?
Well, I'm an avid reader, so Ernest Hemingway said that everybody has a bullshit detector. So I would say I'd be the chief bullshit detector.
That's a great one. That's a great one. Okay, good. If you had to describe your career as a type of food, what would it be and why?
Well, I would say cornucopia.
Oh,
because oh my gosh, we do so much. I got a dozen subject matter experts we're involved in. We do so much stuff. It's so many different projects. No 2 days are the same, but we touch a lot of different consulting projects and things like that. So cornucopia was my my food.
I like that. So yeah, I'm not going to share my food then. Okay. If you have to close a deal, but the only way you can communicate is through emojis, what's your message?
It would be $3 and a smiley face with the sunglasses on.
Okay, I love it. That's simple, straight, right to the point.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. We deliver results. People have asked me, Tom, why should I hire you? I said, because we deliver results.
I love it. That's excellent. Well, listen, Tom, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. Look forward to having you back again.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure being here.
Thank you for listening to the Pass the Pitch podcast with Anna Frazzetto. Don't forget to subscribe and share. In our next episode, we talk to Daniel Davenport on how clients drop their guards when you can predict what their problems are. See you then.